Now, the United States and important new developments in the space program. The location, the Marshall Space Flight Center at Huntsville, Alabama. The Americans now believe they must use space, not just explore it, and they're planning to send a laboratory into orbit 200 miles above the Earth. Called Skylab, it'll be housed inside the third stage of a Saturn V rocket. A full-scale working model of Skylab has been built inside a hydrogen tank at the Huntsville Center. It's as big as a 3-bedroom house. 3-man teams of astronauts will occupy Skylab for 2-month periods when it's launched in 1972. They'll use Apollo spaceships as ferries. Skylab contains a vast amount of complex equipment. We asked the center's science director, Dr. Ernst Stuhlinger, to explain some of it.
We call it an ergometer, and it is a machine which allows an astronaut to sit on and do some work, some mechanical work. It further allows the astronaut to adjust the amount of work which he is expending by his exercise. And then furthermore, his heart rate and breathing rate and so on is being recorded over here by these instruments. We want to achieve 2 purposes with this. First, we want to give him some exercise and to allow him to use his muscles. And second, we would like to see how his body reacts to work after some time in space under weightlessness.
Doctor, is there any difference between exercising in space and exercising here on Earth?
We believe that there is, but hopefully not too much, and probably by selecting the right exercises and the right kind of work, we can make the difference very small and can keep the astronauts healthy and normal and in a working and good living condition.
How close will the environment be in the Skylab to conditions here on Earth?
The living conditions in this room here will be different from those on Earth. Even the air pressure will be considerably lower. The temperature, however, will be as comfortable as possible. That means about the same as we like it on Earth. And then, of course, there is no gravity. So there is not really a ceiling and a floor, but there's just space, and the astronauts will move around weightless.
Weightlessness is only one of the problems the astronauts will face during prolonged stays in space. NASA engineer Bill Brinder explained some of them when he took us on a guided tour of Skylab and its equipment. He began with the gravity chamber.
A vacuum is drawn on the astronaut's lower body to draw the blood to the feet, see if that will help maintain his proper physical condition. We have the control panel up here, which has circuit breakers for all the various devices aboard. Over here we have the rotating chair, and the astronaut sits in it and is instrumented when he rotates to check his bodily functions during this time. Over here we have the sleep compartment. The 3 astronauts will go in here, and as you can see, there's just zip-up, stand-up bags, like a little cocoon, in which you climb in, zip yourself up. Of course, you're weightless, so there's no problem. It would be nice if we could do this at home. Save a lot of space. Here are the portable handholds, which the astronaut can place anywhere on the grid. They normally wear triangle-soled shoes in which they can push in and twist, support themselves, as they're weightless, of course. This is the head waste management compartment with the various apparatus, and also place to wash hands, and a towel rack. This is the trash disposal section down here. The trash bags are dropped in, and the vacuum of the lower LOX tank draws it back down there. It's collected there. This is the wardroom where the food is prepared, stored in the freezer, brought out into the heaters. We have quick heating, and then the astronaut places himself at the table with his foot restraints and also a thigh restraint here to help him from floating away as he enjoys his lunch. This is the gravity substitute workbench, which the astronaut will perform manipulation-type tasks. The material is held down to the workbench by two possible methods. There's workshop arrows drawn down through the screen holding the components to the tabletop, or there's a top plate that can be put on in which electrostatic charges will be applied, and that force will be used to hold down the materials. Now let's go upstairs and we'll look through the forward compartment. In the forward compartment we have primarily photographic experiments, but there are a couple of interesting devices here. This is called a backpack, which the astronaut climbs in, and it's as he's weightless, he's able to manipulate this by pressurized gas and fly around in this area. He does the same thing also on this little shoe device also. The photography experiments stored in the boxes such as this and on the wall, they all connect up to the scientific airlock. This will be the sun side. We have the same type of device on the opposite side, on the dark side. These cameras do a number of things. However, the scientific airlock is a device to permit the viewing through the side of the porthole without letting the air from the workshop get out. This is the sun side. When they deploy these experiments out with various cranks and rods, they get pretty hot, and when they bring them back in, there's quite a problem with the touch temperatures. Over here we have one of the air conditioning ducts with 4 fans. Of course, there's quite a problem in here. With being weightless, the carbon dioxide that is expelled tends to stay around the astronaut, so the air movement has to be kept up and monitored continually. Up at the top dome you have the entrance hatch, which the astronauts will come through as they exit the airlock. They'll come down this pole, and the pole will be stowed down on the side so that they can use this area for their flying experiments. Well, that's about it for up here. Now, Dr. Stuhlinger will be able to tell you more about the mission down in the crew quarters.
The Skylab here has 4 major tasks. First, it will give us a number of very interesting scientific explorations of the sun. Second, it will allow us to take a very good look at our Earth. We call that our Earth Resources Program, and we would like to find out whether we can possibly find a better assessment and distribution of the goods on Earth by looking down from space. Third, it will give us an opportunity of seeing and finding out what man can do in space. We do not yet know how valuable he will be in experiments in space, and we would like to find out in how far observations from orbit can be used to make the resources on Earth more useful, how to assess and control them better, and this we believe can be done partially at least from orbit. And then we would like to find out how man can survive over long periods in time and how he can be used in general. Now, this is in essence the content of our program for the next 10 years, and this project here, Skylab, will do in miniature, so to speak, in a small scale, all of these explorations and assessments and studies and investigations already. So in a very broad sense, this Skylab project will be the beginning, the initiation of a very broad and, as we hope, very successful and useful program of the next 10 years.
Dr. Stuhlinger, what happens after Skylab? What will be the next project?
We have a very broad program of studies underway now, and we are not quite sure yet which ones will be brought to fruition. It's a matter of funding, of footing the bill. We are studying, for example, a station, an orbiting station, which could be made an international station with participation by other countries. We are also studying a so-called shuttle, Earth-to-orbit shuttle. That is a vehicle which can go up and down easily and quickly with heavy loads. We are also studying a continuation of the Skylab program, Skylab 2 and Skylab 3. And then, of course, we are studying a number of projects which do mainly science, astronomy, space physics, space biology, and also observation of the Earth.
Although it'll be at least another 2 years before Skylab actually gets onto the launch pad, preparations for the mission are already at an advanced stage. In simulators such as this one at the manufacturer's headquarters in California, all the conditions of spaceflight can be reproduced and their effects on the crew noted. Earlier this year, a group of young American scientists spent 90 days inside the simulator, depending on it throughout the whole period for all their supplies of food, air and water. The first Skylab is being equipped to support a crew of 3 astronauts for up to 2 months at a time. The idea is that once the laboratory has been launched into orbit, the first crew will be sent up to join it in a Saturn V rocket. After a month, they'll return to Earth to be replaced by another crew which will stay twice as long. A third crew will also do 2 months. Up to now, of course, astronauts have been a Spartan breed, accustomed to spending their days in space in a cabin not really big enough for a small chimpanzee. The room and facilities afforded by Skylab are luxurious in comparison and are the first indications that space travel is a real prospect for the future, not just for a few hardy supermen, but for ordinary people as well. The problems at the moment are the practical, down-to-earth ones of life support systems. But once these are solved, the prospects for man in space are breathtaking. The Americans are already talking in terms of a grand tour of the outer planets, which would take men out of the solar system by 1985. In spite of their ambitious plans, nobody in the National Space Administration is pretending that America has a world lead in this field. A few weeks ago, Russia's Soyuz 9 orbited the Earth for nearly 18 days, easily breaking the previous American record. Russia, in fact, has always concentrated on staying in space rather than merely getting to the moon and back. The truth is that Skylab is one vitally important part of the space race where America is lying second, and where it'll have to run hard to catch up. The big problem is money. Along with other NASA programs, Skylab's suffering from cutbacks in the space budget. There are now so few Saturn V rockets that the full Skylab project can only be carried out at the expense of the Apollo moon program. There seems little doubt that the men at NASA will find the sacrifice worth making.